remember I walked up into St James's and my hands, everything, my whole body just lit up. I've got goosebumps all over my skin.
I get those goosebumps every time you come around, yeah. You ease my mind, you make everything feel fine. Worry about those comments, I'm way too numb, yeah. It's way too dumb, yeah. I get those goosebumps every time I need the Heimlich, throw that to the side, yeah. I get those goosebumps every time, yeah. When you're not around, when you throw that to the side, yeah. I get those goosebumps every time, yeah. 713 through the 281, yeah, I'm riding. Why they on me? I'm flying, sipping low key. I'm sipping low key and honest, find a rider. I get those goosebumps every time you come around, yeah. You ease my mind, you make everything feel fine. Worry about those comments, I'm way too numb, yeah. It's way too dumb, yeah. I get those goosebumps every time I need the Heimlich, throw that.
Hey, good evening, everyone, and welcome to Loaded Mag NUFC. We are back again, the full early transfer show, to talk all the latest goings on with Newcastle United. And as you can probably tell by the little glint of light coming from my screen, it's nice and sunny again today. Daz, how are you over in Ireland on this fine Thursday? I was about to say Sunday, Thursday evening.
It's pissing rain here all day. It's been
really?
lovely the last few days, but yeah, it's raining here, so it's on the way, Pete. Enjoy it while you can. But apart from that, I'm all good. The say it couldn't be done, but we have a mute Sean Casey. So let's hope when he rejoins that we can actually hear him this time. But I'm all good with me. How are you?
You know what? Yeah, I've had an inspiring day today. Really good.
Wow.
Got a nice little surprise for at work. One of my ex-students who left the country 5 years ago returned, and it's an interesting story actually. He was on the cusp of being taken by Leicester City into their academy. Really, really good footballer. It was only, like I say, 5 years ago. He was 14 or so at that time. And his family moved to Saudi Arabia. And he's come back to visit, and he came to see me today, just surprised me in my room, came and seen me. And he's just finished his first year professional contract at Al Hilal, where Neymar Jr. and co are playing. And I'm really proud of him, doing really well. He's representing Al Hilal under 19s. They've just won the league this season. He scored 28 goals in 26 games. So I did mention about the intention of coming to the north of England to potentially be our backup to Alexander Isak. He looks a bit like him, plays like him too. Talented boy. But yeah, you know what? It was a really kind of inspiring day because he surprised me. I wasn't expecting him. I didn't even know he was in the country. So he came to see me, and it was great to catch up with him. And I took him to meet some young students, and he gave them a bit of a nice, inspiring talk. So it was great to kind of experience that. And we're going to keep in touch. It was.
Are you allowed to say his name? Because there's probably be articles written about him tomorrow now, linked with various clubs, including Newcastle. But
I think people will be talking about him in a few years. They've got a rule in Saudi where you can't leave, you can't play elsewhere, you can't play in another country. So he's desperate to come and play in England. Like, he wants to play in England. If given the opportunity. First of all, he wants to push into the first team because he's trained with the first team players, the likes of Neymar before his ACL injury, and then he's trained with them on a regular basis, but he's not quite broke into the first team yet. And if he doesn't make it into that first team, then he definitely wants to apply his trade in England. But I'll let you know of his name off camera, and we'll keep a. I don't know if
Chelsea away at least, I suppose.
Yeah. You'll be able to find him. I'm sure. But I'm not sure if he wants me to announce to the world who he is. But great lad. great lad, great professional, and yeah, a nice surprise. Yeah, been a good day. Can't lie. But what I will say, the tunes are out. So great to have everybody getting their tunes in. And I'm just going to give a little shout out. Mansell, you tune. Welcoming Lee, great to have you in there. Rich, brilliant stuff. Easy Slim, great to have you with us. FX Pro, get your questions ready. I know we will be ready. Jordy Tune for Life, hope you're all well. GK, great stuff. And James, brilliant to have all your tunes and a few more coming in as well. Like to tune tactics. John, Simon, great to have you tunes in there. Brilliant stuff. Excellent. And I think we do have Sean in the green room.
We do in the house. We tested out to see if we can hear him this time. Welcome back, Sean.
Can you hear me now?
Do it.
We can hear you.
I'm guessing it's my headset. There's something wrong with it, so I changed my headset.
Nice one.
Do you know what I mean? These are the things I do for you, lads. Although I am odd with you, I'm not going to lie. I was saying I was never going to come on the show again. There I was, second year in a row, boots cleaned up, everything ready to get on the flight and go over and play in the game. No call. You know what I mean?
Next time
you can.
You know you're
Next time. I can't believe that I've had to ask for an invite. There I was planning my trip. Dad's going to go from Galway, I go from Cork. We meet in Dublin. Off we go, over, play the game, lift the cup. Happy days. Not even a fucking whisper. I thought my Twitter was broken and all. I got into fucking Elon Musk and I was saying, lads haven't contacted me. Like, you know, there I was sitting looking out my window, obviously in my mom's basement because that's where everybody says I live. Yeah. No call. You know.
But was that one of those times where you go like disappear off Twitter for 2 months?
No. When I go on holiday, see, I don't do any social media on holidays, so I leave all my WhatsApp groups, leave Twitter, leave everything, and I just go back to all the SMS. And yeah, it's good. It's a nice, easy, breezy life. Yeah, I took a bit of a break. I was in France with the kids there for 10 days. Good break. We stayed in chalets there in the south of France, so good for a change.
Yeah, spot on.
Refreshed.
Yeah,
well,
something like that, yeah.
What I will say before we get started is the invite is now there, officially invited to the next charity match, Loaded Mag NUFC against Newcastle Fans TV. Will be happening some point in the new season. I think we've sorted the time, so we'll talk to you off air and we'll let you know. So give
me a little bit of notice so I can move things around. And does Daz wear a skirt for that game, or is it for a different occasion?
He hasn't shown up yet.
It's not too bad if it's an Adidas skirt. You can wear little hot pants underneath if you want.
No, there's no sign-on. Thank God. I think a lot of people are happy with that, but it could resurrect again. That one, of course. We'll get into a bit of that. Pete, I think let's kick us off because there's so much stuff. There's enough for about 3 or 4 shows to get through. Even judging by the amount of things that you put out on Twitter when you ask people what you want to talk about. So, Pete, lead the way.
Look, something that's interesting that kind of like overlaps all of this is that we know ultimately that there's a deadline. The 30th of June is that deadline that Newcastle United have to sell for PSR. And what's just been kind of put out there on socials from Stefan within the last hour is this. So Stefan had asked the question about Newcastle potentially extending their accounting period so that we weren't having to be under pressure to sell a player before this Sunday. Now, from what he's looked at in Company's House, apparently it was previously extended, so therefore we weren't able to. So that is an interesting one that leaves us in a position. We got 3 days to sell somebody because although people have argued the toss either way about we don't need to sell, we do need to sell, we got 3 days. And I don't know what you think, Daz, I don't know what you think, Sean. by the movement of some of the players, and in particular Yankuba Minteh.
But like
you need to say.
The thing is, you know, like, look, I got a bit of abuse on Twitter yesterday. I couldn't believe it. So I've been banging on about PSR, I suppose, since January. You know, like, it's very, very real. It's not very hard to work out what the accounts are. You know, what is hard to work out is, are they leveraging buying Strawberry Place versus our accounts, or how they're going to account for that. So I done the accounting on it, right? I'm educated enough to do it, you know. So when I done it, I'd say January, say late February, I had us coming in at around, I think it was like, say, 41 million, and then leverage the sale of Strawberry Place against that. So it could be maybe around 24 million. That's if they try to cook the books a little bit. Like, I reckon 20 million minimum is what we're off, you know, and that's even with clever accounting and everything. You know, the thing is that we got ourselves into a massive mess in January, you know, like with Dan Ashworth. He didn't really want to be he didn't want to be a deal maker. You know, he was kind of in the background, creating structures, putting systems in place and all this. He didn't want to get into the nitty gritty of selling players and deal making and stuff like that. And there was a lot of tension, I suppose, in the background because of that, because what they were getting isn't really what they got either, you know, in the sense of Stavely, you know, Yasser Al-Rahman, like they were still getting involved in deals, heavily in deals. Steve Nixon was negotiating deals and stuff like that, you know. So January became a mess, you know. Trippier going to Munich, you know, we had 14 fit players at the time, you know, still with the opportunity of gaining a European place. You know, you sell Trippier, nobody's going to see the dip in his form and all this kind of stuff, you know. So you could have sold Trippier, probably get nobody in. You know, Tino Livramento played with, was it a grade 2 tear in his ankle, you know, because we were so flesh and bones at the end, like, you know. So selling Trippier was never really an option, although I would have sold him, you know, but hindsight is fucking 2020. The thing about Callum Wilson, you know, Almiron didn't want to move in January. You know, Almiron, if he's going to leave Newcastle, he wants to go to the States. Wilson, he's not in a rush to go, you know, although he likes to go to Dubai every second week. But you know, it became a very hard situation to sell players, and that's where you really need somebody that's out aggressively canvassing these players, you know, a director of football that's out there on the ground trying to sell these players, and that wasn't Dan Ashworth, you know, and Steve Nixon doesn't really do that role either, so it kind of fell between two stools, and now we've ended up where we are. You know, if people are naive enough to think that we don't have PSR issues, they're fooling themselves, like, you know, and I don't mean to talk down to anybody in that sense. The accounts are there for everybody to see. You can create ballpoint figures on what the last 2 years were, and we were in a minus of 27 million, you know, kind of going into the season, if not more. You know, so, like, it's not that I'm making up or trying to scare people or scaremongering. If anything, I'm just trying to be very honest with people and use my platform to say that we're in trouble financially when it comes to PSR this year. Next year, it's a different story. You know, Champions League money kicks in, Adidas money kicks in. You know, we'll have the training ground sponsorship in July. You know, there's a lot of stuff, or the training gear sponsorship, in July. There's a lot of stuff there that can happen, but it doesn't happen overnight. We've got ourselves into a mess, and at the boardroom level, I don't think things are all rosy in the garden, because the Saudi side of the consortium are asking a lot of questions of how we got into the situation. You know, so as things stand, we're staring on the bottom barrel of a points deduction. If there was a benchmark to say that, so Forest went 27 million over last year, they ended up getting a 4-point deduction, then you'd say, fair enough, look, you take it on the chin. At the end of the day, 4 points could also be the difference between 4th and 5th place, you know. But, like, a lot of talks and a lot of stuff I've been hearing in recent weeks is that the likes of Manchester United, Arsenal, Liverpool are pushing for temporary transfer bans for people that breach the rules, because they feel like people are going to do it if only 4 points. What's the sake of 4 points if you're buying a player that can get you 10? You know, so what the implications are of breaching the PSR this year, the club don't know. There is no, say, everything got this, so we're going to get this, or Forrester got this, so we're going to get this. How they treat Newcastle is totally different how they treat other clubs, you know. Like, I know Keith there from NCL. Like, I know he bangs on about it in fucking, you know, corruption and all this kind of stuff, but he's right. Like, you know, like, the Premier League are winning at the moment against Newcastle. You know, it's not set up fair, and they are winning. They're stopping us. You know, they're drawing out sponsorship deals and stuff like that. And the situation that we're in is the situation that they want us to be in. I don't want an open door system where we can go in, we can buy everything we want. I want to do things fair and above board, but they're creating a situation where they're actually stopping the club from growing at a quicker rate. The problem is that there's an inevitability there that 5, 6, 7 years, we will be one of the biggest clubs in England, if not one of the biggest clubs in the world, because we have the certainty of PIF. PIF are one of the richest consortiums in the world. The money they have behind them is astronomical. It's inevitable that we will get there. It's just going to take a little bit longer. And I think people need to calm down a bit. You know, I know I'm going off on a little bit of a tangent here, but like you see a lot of people say, why don't we do what Chelsea do? Newcastle were bought a couple of months previous to Chelsea. Newcastle cost 300 million. That's the whole portfolio of what Newcastle was worth. Chelsea cost 4.25 billion. We cannot go out and behave like Chelsea behave. Their commercial portfolio leaves us in for dust. You know, that's like comparing Greggs to McDonald's. You know, like they are oceans apart. They can go out and they can be bullish because they can sell hotels and all this kind of stuff, and they can be clever how they move money around. Newcastle don't have that opportunity. We almost started as a new club 2.5 years ago when the takeover happened. We started from scratch. Nothing, no baseline, no nothing. We were an empty shell of a club. And for people to say that, why don't we do what Chelsea do? If you mark what progress is, like there's a thing that you have to look at. There's perception versus perspective. You know, like the perception of the situation is when you're looking at Chelsea, they're really active. They're buying loads of players. They're filling out their squad, right? But if you look at it, pre-takeover, they had Kante, Kovacic, Rudiger, Mason Mount, Havertz. They've replaced them with the likes of Enzo Fernandez, Jackson Martinez, Disasi. You know, they haven't upgraded on their squad at all. You know, so pre to post takeover, right? Their squad has regressed. Whereas Newcastle have replaced Shelby with Bruno, we've replaced ASM McGordon, we've replaced Dwight Gale with Alexander Isak, we've replaced Fernandez with Sven Botman and Yedlin with Trippier. Where's the progress? I'm sitting back, and when you actually look at it and you give a perspective, you're thinking, Jesus, Newcastle, Chelsea should be doing what Newcastle do. We're actually upgrading. If you were to value both clubs now, which club has gone up in value? I reckon Newcastle has probably tripled, quadrupled in value. You know, we could be easy worth, if they're saying everything are worth 500 million, you could double that for Newcastle at the moment for where we're going. So people need to get, I suppose, detach themselves from this Chelsea situation, because we have exceeded massively versus what Chelsea have done. Chelsea have regressed. We've progressed. You know, so just because they're active and they're getting linked with all these players and they're buying loads of players, doesn't mean they're doing things the right way. You know, and if I was to choose a club and say that's the right way about it, it's what Newcastle do, and that's the way I want my club to run.
Yeah,
you know,
we're in a position where Chelsea have almost had like 20 years on us, and they've been able to build their infrastructure, their sponsorships, all the rest of it, because that's what it's boiling down to now, the football side of things. Like you said, we've got the money to challenge any of these top teams. We have, because we've got the finances behind us. The problem is that the fundamentals to be able to build it, the sponsorships, the everything else, they've had 20 years to develop that and almost had free reign to do so. Man City been the same. They've had the money behind them, but they've had the free reign to be able to do it. And this is the issue. And this is where I think sometimes they forget. I've had some today go, just take the points deduction and just go for it. A points deduction could be anything, because like you said, and I said exactly the same to the lads that I was talking to, you think they're going to treat Newcastle United the same as they did Forest and Everton? Not a chance.
But see, what people forget, like football is played on spreadsheets now. You know, like it's crazy, but like it's not as simple as going out and just sponsor the stadium, sponsor the training ground and stuff like that, right? So if you go for stadium sponsorship, right, you rename the stadium. There's a lot of stuff that goes into that with local council and this kind of stuff because you're changing a landmark, right? What we'd get for stadium sponsorship now, right, as a club that got into the Champions League, yo-yoed out, you know, came, say, just above mid-table, right? What we get for stadium sponsorship right now versus if we waited a year, you know, we'd actually probably gain more money waiting because we would have, you know, there's like a point system for the sponsorship deals now with the Premier League. You know, you have to be in the top half of the table for X amount of years to qualify for a certain percentage, you know, and that's how they're doing these related party transactions and all this kind of stuff. And that's how they're scoring sponsorships. So we have to delay the stadium sponsorship, training ground sponsorship, until it's actually worth our while doing it. You know, if we went now for stadium sponsorship, they'd class us as like, you know, Wolves, you know, this kind of stuff, like in around there, because they say, oh, we were in the Championship 5 years ago, you know. Whereas if we wait a year or two and didn't do the stadium sponsorship, you could gain an extra 20 million, you know, just by waiting that bit of time. And that's why people need to be patient. You just need the club to kind of catch up where it is. And I think a lot of the time people are basing their you know, their disappointment on their expectations, not reality. You know, not the reality of the situation that we're in. You know, we're a Championship club transitioning into a Champions League club in a very, very short space of time. Can anybody name one club that has done what Newcastle are trying to do legally?
No.
Not at the rate, and not as big a project as us. Like you said, we were starting as a almost kind of guaranteed relegated team, and we're literally having to build the club up from the ground up. Like you said, it's you know, when you got a huge backer behind you, it can be, with free reign, it can be quite quick to change things in terms of personnel on the pitch. But like you talked about, behind the scenes, the infrastructure, just with staff, you look at the turnover of staff in the last 2 years, how many new staff are coming into the club and taking on major roles. That takes time. The infrastructure and things of how it works, the sponsorships, Darren Neals, Peter Silverstone, all that stuff, that's going to take time. And when they're set and they're growing, that's when you're going to see us on another scale. But do you, I was going to say, Sean, just really quickly, do you think this Man City case has any bearing on what the potential is to do forward? Because we've had the discussions, we've talked to Man City fans, me and Daz know a few that come on loaded, and we've had a chat with them. Do you think the outcome of that case has any benefit to Newcastle, particularly if you win?
But like, do you have any faith, honestly, in the Premier League coming to a conclusion with Man City? Right, with Sandro Tonali, for example, all the evidence was provided in October, right? The sanction is ban. They signed off on the UEFA ban, and they got around to actually ratifying it for the Premier League about 7 months later. Some people will tell you that they didn't realise that they actually had to do individual paperwork as well to actually create a ban within the Premier League. They signed off and they signed to an agreement on what UEFA presented to them. That's their European ban, but they actually didn't sign off on the domestic ban. Look at the Paqueta case. That's nearly a year on. That's one. That's one. Jesus.
It's your downfall.
Right. So I have a lot of downfalls. Like, that's one player, right? All the betting and everything has been provided to him, and they still haven't brought a case against him. You're talking about Man City, who will employ the best people in the world to tie him up in knots. The Premier League won't see the end of this case for years. We won't see the end of this case for years. And also, realistically, they don't want Man City to drop out of the Premier League or to punish them, because Man City will just say, we're going to break away. We start our own league. Yeah. And people go with them. You think PIF are going to look at it and think, do you know what? I'm sick of the way they're treating us here. We're going to join you too. You know, and Chelsea, Todd Buey, he'd be out the door like a shot.
Yeah,
you know,
a few of them.
wherever the biggest money is.
And that's it. Like, if you look at Chelsea's behaviour, right? And I spoke to somebody recently, and they're in the belief that the Premier League are going to justify not banning them, and they're going to justify some of it against the fact that they've stayed within FFP regulations for the past 5 years. So if you look how they sell players, selling Parma and all this kind of stuff, on the books, they're probably outside Brighton financially when it comes to financial fair play, right? And if you look at it just on the books, regardless of these sponsorship deals that were done from 2019 previous, they're probably the best club in the Premier League for the past 5 years. and the Premier League will probably leverage good behaviour against what's there and can't come to certain conclusions and stuff like that. It's going to be so muddy and murky that it will take years to come to an agreement on it, and by the time they do, it will be irrelevant. Will it have anything against Newcastle? I don't think it will, being honest with you. I'm not holding no hope for it. I just think we need to worry about Newcastle in isolation, and we need to be very patient because the Premier League are going to tie us up in knots. They're doing it now. They're going to do it for another couple of years until we can actually build that commercial portfolio to blow the doors open. We can't go in and sell a player to Saudi Arabia for 40 million because that's going to be tested. We can't bring in sponsorship because the sponsorship is being tested. So we have to wait a little bit longer, be a little bit more patient. They're making all the right decisions, and we have to back them on that.
Just want to go back to the points deduction part again, right? Because you guys said like
2 seconds.
Look at us. Okay, right. But before we're waiting at Sean, we should give a shout out to the sponsors. Actually, we'll shout out to the Radiator Shed. Radiator Shed for all your radiator needs.
I thought I was after coming back to B&Q or something. I was joining the wrong podcast.
Sorry, I just want to go back. Yeah, I just want to go back to the points deduction, right? And we said like they'd throw the book at Newcastle, but how can they do anything different to Newcastle than they did to Everton or Forest, right? How can they give us more points deduction? And I think FX Pro put it in the chat about a maximum of 12 points is all that. Well, it's enough. That's all that could be deducted. But so how could they throw the book at us?
Forest is pretty straightforward. They went over by 27.8 million. They got their 5 points, 4 points, 5 points. With Everton, it's really murky because they inflated cost of stadium works, COVID and all this kind of stuff. You can't really benchmark against that. You'd hope that we can benchmark against Forest, but there's nothing stopping the Premier League from bringing in a new set of rules for the season. Like you could start the July, they could say that we have X, Y, and Z, and that's what it is. If you go 10 million over, it's 5 points, 20 points, whichever, they can make up the rules for the next season. It doesn't have to be rules that are set in stone that are going to implement Newcastle. So once the rules are in place, before they start their investigation, they can do whatever they want.
We have to remember as well, like whatever it is, even if it's 4, 5, 6, 12 points, like if we're going to be fighting for top European football, potentially Champions League next season, that amount of points actually is a lot in the grand scheme.
It is.
5 points is 4 or 5 points is massive. It could be the difference between getting Champions League and not. 12 points even bigger. That could be the difference between getting European football and not. So I know some people are saying, I take the points deduction, sign all those players. Yeah, but actually even those amounts of points at the top end of the table, just as much as the bottom really, but certainly at the top, can make the difference in there.
Like in my opinion, I think we're going to be top 4 this season. So every point is vital. How tight was it the year that we qualified? And it's going to be even tighter this year, without any European football.
Yeah.
I definitely think we're at the top end of the table and any points deduction is relevant, and we are over the PSR limit. If we don't sell somebody in the next 3 days, we're in trouble.
Right, there's about 700 people watching. 300 of you guys are watching on Twitter, but we're actually going to cut the Twitter stream. We want you all to come join us on YouTube. So the link is in below the feed on Twitter. So click that link; it'll bring you straight in to us on YouTube. So we'll see you in a second when we go start talking about transfer targets.
I want to talk about let's talk about the situation because it affects us with PSR. And just to start with that, I think we've got a super chat from one of our good friends.
And your friend too, Sean.
Yeah.
I have friends?
Yes. Since yesterday you're doing it. Jimmy,
Jimmy, my man.
And he says, we don't have any PSR problems, Sean.
To be fair, you know what? Jimmy's actually a lovely man, and I actually love seeing his posts, because if you're ever having a bad day, Andy, that man, he is positive. Like, he really is. I find the man very inspirational. And yesterday when he went on a bit of a rant, and I seen him over the past couple of weeks and stuff like that, and I seen his kind of form slipping and stuff, and he's not that kind of person. I let other people go away, because as I always say, your interactions with people on social media are a reflection of you, not the person that you're interacting with. Again, if he wants to go down that road, he's not that person, So look, we're all friends, Jimmy. You can call me out on whatever you want, because I am absolutely full of shit sometimes, and I will hold my hands up on that. I get things right, I get things wrong, but I never tell lies. That's the difference.
Jimmy's a top lad, great guy.
Cheers, Jimmy.
Definitely a good friend of the channel, like yourself. For sure. So look, we'll get onto it just because it is PSR related, and we'll. I was going to start goalkeeper to forward line, but I'm not. I'm going to go straight in with Yankuba Minteh, because this situation is all over the place. The last show that we did, it was kind of at this point. Leon were keeping a tab on Yankuba Minteh. Fabrizio Romano talks about that. It's then kind of shifted slightly in a couple of ways. Domsker, another friend of the channel, reported that it's now Marseille, Olympique Marseille, that are keeping an eye on Yankuba Minteh, and De Zerbi, as the new manager, is setting his sights potentially on bringing him to the club. What was talked about today as well, Matt Hughes had reported a couple of times that Yankuba Minteh rejecting a potential move to France could have him seen banished from the team and into the youth team because of the implications of Newcastle missing out on the financial situation. Like, what do you make of this, Yankuba Minteh? Is he the be all and end all for this PSR? Is he the guy that you think we're actually just going to sell because we need to get him gone to recoup that money?
Honestly, from the information I've got, is that behind the scenes, this has caused serious conflict. There is absolutely nobody at the club that wants to sell Minteh, but he is the person that gets us out of jail. Wilson won't move, Almiron won't move, and Trippier won't move. Decided July. They're waiting on certain moves, certain places that they want to go. If it comes late in the window, and if they can't get that, they go off to Saudi. So the only sellable option we have is Yankuba Minteh. And there is nobody at the club that wants to sell him, right? It shows the mess that we've got ourselves in, that we're actually in the situation where we're trying to sell him. Yeah. He wants to move to Everton. He turned down Lyon. He doesn't want to move to France. He wants to move to Germany, or he wants to move to an English club. And that's where he sees himself. At the end of the day, with Minteh, his stock is probably inflated because of playing in Holland. He won't, pre the PSR issues and back in January, my information was that they were planning on sending him out alone again straight away. That he'd stay in Holland, maybe even get him moved to somebody like Ajax or something like that. But he wouldn't be coming back to the club. They'd send him out alone for another year. He is rated very highly. They scouted him for a long time. There is nobody at the club that wants to sell Minteh, but we've got ourselves into a mess with PSR. And for the people saying that we don't have PSR issues, there's a reason. Right, there's a reason why they're trying to flog Minteh, and it's staring you straight in the face. But again, nobody wants to sell him. He won't be excluded from the squad and banished because of not moving and all this kind of stuff. He's well written his right, but if he doesn't go, we're in trouble.
Yeah, well, we've got 3 days now to get that done. I've got to be honest. I don't know what you think, Daz. I've got to be honest. I expected more movement by now. I thought this week was going to be really busy in terms of actually more movement in either Minteh or somebody else moving out now. Were you worried, Daz, that this not get done by Sunday?
Well, linking back to what Sean was saying earlier as well, I know Sean has mentioned the 20 million figure previously a few times, but I don't think anyone really knows how much of a deficit there is. I do believe there is some kind of a deficit though, and I think that one sale will sort it out, especially if it's Minteh, because you're getting at least 25 million, if not north or up to 40. So I think I said it to you boys as well. If we don't see Anthem by Friday evening, tomorrow evening, I would start to worry small bit, but still think they can get things done. But so I think tomorrow.
Is it midnight on Sunday? What's just midnight on Sunday? Just the end of Sunday play.
Yeah. It's almost like a second transfer window, like, isn't it?
Yeah.
You know, and that's the situation. I suppose that's the situation with Minteh. You know, it's just hold our breath. You know, it's very much the same. You know, I think there's bids on the table that clubs have just left there. You know, maybe they bite because I think the communication to Minteh is that you don't. If he doesn't move before the end of June, he doesn't move at all. You know,
I apologize, Chris. We don't normally quote the Sun, but it was just such an outlandish kind of piece. I had to put it on, so I apologize to Chris on that. We don't normally do it, so we make sure that we leave that one there. So Minteh seems to be the one that everyone's talking about. However, there are potential players coming in. I'm going to revert back to the goalkeeper situation.
Start from the start, from the back out.
I'm going to get your thoughts on this because I'm not going to lie. I'm annoyed. I'm fuming. And I said it last night. I know Daz is fuming. I'm sure you are, Sean. I know
I'm not.
In the chat because this man should be a Newcastle United player, in my opinion. I think in Daz's opinion. Fabrizio Romano said this morning, remains one to watch in the weeks. He's basically, he can leave. He can leave Valencia. He's allowed to leave 35 million to 40 million euros. Obviously, it won't maneuver now until he's finished at the Euros. And that stay is going to be a little bit longer. We talked about the James Trafford situation. That's hit a snag at the moment with regards to the fee. For me, I agree with it. I don't think they should be paying 20 million to get James Trafford out of Burnley. And then interestingly, a nice little sidewinder reported today that John Ruddy is left Birmingham City and has been given a contract offer to consider at Newcastle United. Like
Scott Carson,
the goalkeeper situation.
So for me, with Marmadashvili, I understand the situation, and as much as he's a good shot stopper, I wouldn't be overly keen for what you rate a goalkeeper on now, right? Your goalkeeper has to be good with his feet. It's the basics, right?
Sure.
Don't just let me finish, right? So we'll start it off, right? And just put a bit of context into the situation, right? So Marmadashvili, excellent shot stopper, right? We know that. He's having a good tournament, right? Bayern Munich have looked at him.
Too.
Right? Bayern Munich have looked at him. Arsenal looked at him. Manchester United have looked at him, and Chelsea have looked at him, and they all passed. Right? He was at his agent. I think he was actually at Munich himself last year, and they passed on him because of his footwork. Right? Whether we like it or not, it's very, very relevant for a keeper to be good with his feet. Right? His passing, his pass completion, his touches per game, all this kind of stuff, he's at the bottom 20% of keepers in the world, right? Whereas when you talk about touches per game, passes completed, James Trafford is in the top 99%, right? When you talk about shots faced, right? If you look at Trafford, so stats are, like, you have to put context to stats, right? If you look at shots faced, right, versus the amount of saves he's made, Trafford is in the top 90%, but he drops below it in because of volume of shots he takes. His save percentage is skewed, right? Marmadashvili, his stats when it comes to shots saved is actually worse versus the volume he faces, right? The thing is, right, with Newcastle United next season, take Trippier out of the equation, right? Take Sven Botman out of the equation, and say Fabian Schär misses games, right? The man was made of steel last season, right? Now, your back four, for example, right, if it's made up of Lewis Hall, Tino Livramento, you have, say, Lloyd Kelly or Dan Byrne, and then you have Malik Taw, right? Where's your out ball from defence? If you have Marmadashvili there as well, right? You only have Lewis Hall, who they'll probably want to push up and kind of start to become more inverted, probably like kind of join in a box midfield and stuff like that, and become more advanced. You have Taw, he can pass the ball, right? But he's not the kind of person that's going to, break the lines and stuff like that, like a Fabian Schär would, or Sven Botman would, or a Kieran Trippier would. We're taking 3 players out of our defence, right? That can find Bruno in midfield, can find Joelinton with a long pass, or else can find Gordon down the line, right? We're taking 3 passes out of the team, and then we're not adding anything to it. So for the goalkeeper situation, to have a goalkeeper that's good with his feet, which Trafford is excellent with his feet, right? His stats prove that, and he's playing in a Burnley team that opposition actually camped in their third, where he was pressed very, very heavily, and he still ended up in the top 99 percentile for touches and passes for a goalkeeper in a relegated side, which is phenomenal. He struggled under crosses and stuff like that last year because the defence was horrendous, right? Trafford's metrics and his performance is a little bit skewed versus the team that he was playing and the job he was asked to do, but he's very confident. Marmadashvili is a better shot stopper. When it comes to playing with his feet and being a sweeper keeper, Marmadashvili's average distance from goal is about 12 yards with a Valencia team that were very progressive and good on the ball. He does not want to leave his box. He is very like Dubravka. If he goes past the 6-yard box, he nearly gets a nosebleed. No, and this is, I'm right when I'm saying this, right? Because he does not leave his box, right? Whereas Trafford, I think his average distance was nearly 16 yards with a Burnley team that were camped on their own box, which is huge, for what we need from a goalkeeper. And yes, I know you need to be a good shot stopper, which Trafford actually is, and the stats actually prove that. The problem is the volume of shots that he faced, right? I understand. Don't 100% agree with it. I understand why we're looking at Trafford instead of Marmadashvili, the same way Arsenal went for Rea ahead of him. Fucking Chelsea, well, I don't really like Sanchez. The same reason why Bayern Munich didn't look at him, and the same reason Manchester United didn't look at him. And that's it. That's my say on it. I do understand where you're coming from. I've watched him play, and I think, holy God, that man can save a ball, but he can't move off his line. And to be a Premier League goalkeeper and to play in the defence that we're going to have next season, we need a goalkeeper that is very, very good on the ball, because we won't have many defenders that can pick that pass.
Who are you signing, Sean?
Trafford. I think the offer for Trafford is still on the table, and I think Newcastle are waiting to see if Burnley bend before the 30th, and if they don't, I think we'd probably come to a compromise. The player has agreement with the club, and we have a good relationship with Burnley. We're at the 18 million at the moment, and there's still soft negotiations there, but we've kind of left it on the table to see if they bite before PSR ends. The clubs have done the same.
They have to sell as well, don't they? Yeah, that's right.
They do, yeah. And like the thing is, they want to get promoted next season. They will put money behind it, so they will want to be above board as well, so they don't get punished like Leicester are getting punished this season. So for me, I understand, and I'll take the criticism, and people are probably shouting at me now at the moment, saying Marmadashvili is way better and all this kind of stuff, and fair enough, I take a point. But if you put James Trafford in that Valencia side, you probably see the same thing. I'd be interested to see in their next games how Marmadashvili gets on when his defence is pressed. That's my say on it. Jesus, I bring logic to the situation, don't I?
It's an interesting
Dave, you're going to agree with me, and you'd hate it. He hates it.
To be fair, like how you kind of set that out, it's a valid point. It is a valid point. You need that. When you were talking about the out ball, when the defenders are pressed and we've got players in the team that aren't as comfortable on the ball, you need the out ball to be able to open the game up a little bit. And you're right. You're absolutely right. And that's where Pope does let us down a little bit. But I just look at Marmadashvili and I just think, with the talent that he is as a goalkeeper, yes, he's not as good with his feet, but he is, for me, he's elite with everything else. And I just think to let that type of goalkeeper go would be, for that sort of price, would be just criminal. Because I do genuinely think that there's only a year or two difference between Trafford and Marmadashvili. I do genuinely think that Marmadashvili has a higher ceiling of achievement than James Trafford, just in my personal opinion.
He probably does, but what? So goalkeepers, reflexes, all this kind of stuff, decision making, etc. That gets better as they get older. You see De Gea when he came to the Premier League, versus as he progressed, his shot stopping, claiming crossing, and stuff like that. Excellent. So that room to improvement is easier right? So it's easier to make. So the way that Trafford is, he'll put on weight. He'll be better under crosses. His decision making of hands to dive, at landing, all this kind of stuff. Right? That's an easier improvement to make rather than trying to teach a player like Marmadashvili at 23 how to pass the ball, how to be good off your line, how to be comfortable in those situations. As he comes off his line 2 or 3 times and he gets caught, you see Barcelona came outside his box, nailed and got sent off, right? It's easier to coach the attributes that Trafford has versus what it is for Marmadashvili to get a keeper that's functional in the team. If you're building a defence with Taw, Livramento, Hall, and say whether it's Kelly or when Botman comes back, say, right, you're not going to be giving up a lot of chances. So to worry about a keeper that's going to be facing high volume shots, I wouldn't be too concerned. If I wanted a keeper that was going to sit in behind a leaky defence, I'd say Marmadashvili. If you want me to pick a keeper that's going to sit behind a strong defence but will struggle for an outball, I'd say Trafford every day.
Do you believe we were in for him up to a point, Sean?
Marmadashvili?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So I nearly read the message off my phone. It was 2 seconds now because I don't want to misquote it. Sorry, no, just bear with me. So what I got was no real positives on Marmadashvili, unwilling to move without European football, once contractually guaranteed first team spot for the first 18 months, though he is open to initial integration period. So basically, it was a case of he wanted to be guaranteed a first team spot. I don't think Howe liked it, because you have to earn your place on Eddie Howe, and he wanted to contractually come in and be guaranteed to start. Players do ask for this, and we've walked away from other deals because of that. I take that with a little bit of a pinch of salt. Good contact. Sometimes the information, when you guess, there's a lot of information obviously in that message of other stuff that was accurate. So I'm kind of like, obviously not the Tucson deal, but I believe it. I believe enough of it, if that makes sense, But and there's other people as well, kind of, that don't have the same source, that have hinted at the same situation, that he wanted to be guaranteed a spot, and the Europe was big for him. Not Conference League, but Europa League. But again, I think we can leave it at the state that I don't think we've walked away from Marmadashvili. I think if Burnley start to push the fee up for Trafford, they might look back at Marmadashvili again. But as things stand, they need a goalkeeper that's good with his feet, and he's not that.
Side question. Follow-on side question. How many contacts do you have? How many sources do you have that reliable sources that you trust? And maybe they haven't let you down.
I'd have maybe 3, I'd say. The funny thing about it is, you might as well touch on the Tucson situation, because I think that probably had an impact on the fee for Marmadashvili as well. Right? The person that gave me the Tucson information, right, that said that basically Tucson was signed, provisional agreement. Well, he said the provisional agreement was in place. Obviously couldn't sign. Right? He also told me that if Tucson doesn't happen, the top 2 priorities are after that are Malik Taw and Max Kilman. Right? He said that James Trafford was the priority as a goalkeeper, and we would make a move for him, and also that we'd make a formal approach for Calvert-Lewin. So out of those 5 things, I had 4 pieces of those information before everybody else. The only thing that left it down was Tucson. Right? People will focus on Tucson because, simple as, you'll always focus on whatever supports your belief. People want me to be full of shit, so they look at the one thing that makes me full of shit rather than the 4 things that actually think, geez, he's actually good information. But I don't care. They can think what they want. On Tucson, I was told provisional agreement was in place. Player was at the club. His brother was at the club. The year previous, and kind of even in January and stuff like that, the information I was getting back is that they didn't trust, that nobody basically in the industry actually trusted his brother as an agent. He was a bit of a shady character or whichever. We worked out with him with the deal with Leo Shahar, and also worked with him in the summer. When Shahar was signing his new contract, he actually floated the idea of Tucson, saying that they rejected Chelsea. The offer wasn't what they wanted. He wasn't interested in going to Manchester United because there was so much uncertainty around the manager situation. They almost presented a deal to Newcastle. They trashed it out and came to an agreement. But what he actually done behind the club's back is he went to Chelsea and said, this is what they're proposing. If he can do better than this, we'll sign for you. They walked away, full presentation from Eddie Howe. This is where we see you. This is what you're going to do, blah, 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 blah. And they said, yeah, we'll sign. Didn't sign physically, but they made the agreement and he changed his mind. They leveraged us against Chelsea, and it happens. Jimmy, and that's what it is. I hold my hands up and say, if you want to say I'm full of shit on the Tucson situation, absolutely. I went in 2 feet and missed the challenge. And that happens. I continue to do what I do. At the end of the day, people say he does it for engagement or, for money and all this kind of stuff. I am not associated to anything. I don't have a YouTube channel. I don't have a website. I don't have Patreons. I don't have nothing. I put out the information I hear. Take it with a pinch of salt. If you're shouting at my account for being right or wrong, it's like going out the end of the road and shouting at a stop sign for telling you to stop instead of just walking past it. It's absolutely pointless because I'll continue to do what I do. I give the information I get. Sometimes it's right, sometimes it's wrong. Don't trust these ITKs and the this, that, and the other stuff. Yeah, whatever. Get used to it.
One last thing on Goalkeeper. Is this the Karius replacement, do you think, if he's been offered a contract?
I think so, but I've heard a few names of players, like goalkeepers that are kind of aging that are going to come into the club. So they're going to bring in somebody. If it's Ruddy or not, I genuinely don't know. But it looks the brief is that they're going to bring in somebody in that kind of Scott Carson role as such.
Okay. All right, we'll leave the goalkeeper thing there. I just want to promote our new business. It's going to be a part of the stack. Davies Mexicano. Newcastle to that today, so I'm really excited to join forces with Newcastle United.
Lee, yourself and Lee, is it?
Yeah, and as it says on there, we're going to be promoting the loaded nachos. So loaded nachos on Loaded Bag NUFC. You heard it here first. Great stuff. We talk about the centre back situation. We'll work our way through. Obviously, we've talked about a number of other players recently. There was Tomori that was linked from AC Milan. In particular, you've mentioned about Max Kilman as well. We've had a couple of others that have been linked, but in particular, I want to talk about this man, Malik Tor from AC Milan. There's been reports from Matteo Moretto that talked about the interest from Newcastle. Obviously, that's in Italian. We've then had Fabrizio Romano jump on that as well and say that there's no talks for Tomori, but there has been interest from Newcastle there. An update on that situation involving our own Kieran Trippier as potential part of that deal. And even more so today, has been included in the shortlist of centre-backs to discuss. And you kind of touched on this already. With that,
I broke the news on Malik Tor on the 10th.
Well, and you've been talking about him for ages. In fairness,
you know what?
Yeah,
I'll go back again. I'll actually read the message just as how I got it on the 10th of June because. So, hi mate, can give you a bit of an exclusive. AC Milan German centre half Malik Tor looks like he's coming to Newcastle. Player in agreement, clubs talking.
Okay.
That was the 10th of June, and again, I'm told last year, they went last year, they went previous for him moving to AC Milan, they love him, he's the one. So a kind of decision had to be made really of if you miss out in Tucson, they didn't want to get their top centre-back target this summer, ideally. They wanted to focus on other areas, but we're missing out in Tucson, they have to get in that top right centre-back, Yeah. Max Kilman, they absolutely love Max Kilman as well, but Tor is on that bottom level where they feel like he is the future. He has absolutely every attribute that you have to coach in a centre half. See, what you have to understand as well for Eddie Howe is in pressure. He's under pressure going into the season. He has to perform. Agents and rep and all these kind of things. They've been offering managers the PIF to beat the band. Your Tuchels, your De Zorbis, all these kind of people. He'll come in, he'll do the job. So Eddie Howe is absolutely under pressure. And if you're looking nearsighted and if you're a manager of a football club, you're thinking Malik Tor, and I'll kind of quote what Arsene Wenger says, with a young centre-back, you pay for their development and points, right? If you bring in Malik Tor, he will get too tight, he will get caught high up the pitch, and he will cost you a goal here and there, right? If you bring in Max Kilman, and people might not rate him, but if you don't rate him, you don't watch enough football. Very good on both feet, excellent in the air, rock solid defender. You know that for this season, you have a solid centre-back that's going to do a job. limit the mistakes, and you know exactly what you're going to get out of him. So for Eddie Howe, I can understand why he'd lean towards bringing in a Max Kilman, because he's looking at protecting his job over the next 6 to 12 months. Whereas if you're future-proofing your football club, you're bringing in Malik Taw. And I think it's very much the case of they'll find out the fee for Kilman, they'll find out the fee for Taw, and decide which way to go. And I think from what I'm getting at the moment is they're looking at Taw. I was also told that Tomori was never an option. It's funny because he was actually used as the cover-up for the Tonali deal. I know he looks like he's been used as the cover-up for the Taw deal, but I think it's something that'll probably simmer away in the background, probably into July and stuff like that. But he's a top target for centre-back.
Speaking to Wolves fans, we know Little Dan, who's Wolves fancast that pops on now and again, and there's rumours from the Wolves, and they want sort of like 45 million for Max Kilman. Surely Malik Taw wouldn't be that much, or would he?
They wanted 50. So they wanted 50 million from last year. So we tried to sign him last year. Like, we went hard on him last year, probably in August. You know, they wanted to shift Lascelles and bring in, they were looking at Joachim Anderson at the time, and they were looking at Malik Taw. It was kind of one or the other. In the end, they couldn't shift Lascelles, and the fee for Malik Taw was up around the 50 million mark. So they stepped away from it. Now they're saying that fee has dropped. You know, the person I was speaking to was saying that he was told that AC Milan are looking at a French centre-back that they want to bring in to replace him, speculating it's Upamecano, or it could be that young fella there from Lille that are the centre-back. So they kind of have somebody that they want to bring in, so they're looking to bring in the money, you know. So it'd be interesting, you know, but he's the top target. Do they get him? I don't think they wanted it to leak in the media so soon, but look, they're absolutely all in on him. He is the top target.
Okay. Just before we come to some questions, we've got well over 500 in the chat, nearly 550 plus in the chat. Make sure you click those likes. Make sure you do all that good housekeeping stuff. And of course, if you're new to the channel, consider subscribing to us. Lots of questions to ask you, Sean. We'll try and work through a few speedy ones. As we
do you want the speed ones, or do you want the juicy ones?
Go for it.
Go for it, right. But also, and thanks to everyone that jumped over from Twitter and joined us on YouTube. Nice one for finding the channel and sticking with us. Right, I'm going to go for a juicy one.
If I go off on a tangent, stop me. Okay. give me like a 30-second answer.
Here's a 30-second answer. So, okay, and I'll link it to the multi-club model. Right, there's a lot of talk of PIF. In looking at a club in Brazil, but there's also talk of Monaco. But David asked the question, do you think the director of football at PSG will be our new director of football when AS Monaco are part of our family of clubs? So there's a lot in that now, but what's your thoughts on the whole multi-club model and who PIF are linked to?
Okay, maybe make it like a 15-minute answer. So
juicy.
Right, so yes, the multi-club model has been there in place. They want to get that off the ground. But all the attention is being focused on Newcastle at the moment, right? They will do it. It will happen, but it might take a little bit longer. They need to get Newcastle to a certain level first, obviously. And that's where the focus and attention is going. And they'll bring in more people into the group to help with that. Yes, they've looked at Monaco. I think they've looked at Marseille as well. Monaco was the one that I was told. They have looked at Brazil, but PIF are actually looking at, I think, buying out the TV rights, or even actually buying into the league itself. Nowadays, like the Barclays Premier League, it might be like the PIF Premier League in Brazil. So there's a few this kind of conflicting information based on my kind of PFI source. They're looking at buying into Brazil football as a whole, so that can benefit Saudi football as well. Get players over younger, get them trained younger and stuff like that. So they're looking at creating that network almost between country and country rather than club and club. How that implements buying a single club and making it part of the Newcastle group, I don't know how that would work, because it would be very conflicting to actually own a league essentially, you know, and own a football club within that. So with the Brazil side of things, it gets a bit complicated because there's kind of varying degrees of how they're going to invest there and what they can do. But they're looking at investing in the league first priority, and if that can't come off, they will look at buying a club there then. And it's more to kind of harvest talent in Saudi Arabia, and the same. You will see them invest heavily in African football as well. And with the director of football stuff, so for Newcastle, for the director of football, they wanted somebody that would work hand in glove with Eddie Howe. You know, Dan Ashworth was very detached from the situation. He created structures and he put people in place, and you've heard this a million times before. You know, he was an organizer in the sense of he put the right people in the right place. There's no point in shouting abuse at Dan Ashworth. He done an absolutely fantastic job for us in bringing us from a club that was an absolute tin pot into actually understanding where we work from bottom to top, right? What he's done, he's an absolute snake, and the way he's treated the club has been disgraceful. But what he brought to the club and the education that he gave to the ownership group is invaluable. You know, you can thank him for it, and you can say, best of luck, sling your hook. You know, but the problem is that Eddie Howe was too powerful for him, and he couldn't share a room with him. You know, and that pissed Dan Ashworth off. At the end of the day, Dan Ashworth was walking into a room with Amanda Staveley, who's negotiated 3 of the biggest deals in sport over the past, say, 10 years, well, 20 years. The sale of Manchester City, the sale of Newcastle United, and the Live Golf situation. Then you also have Eddie Howe, who brought Bournemouth from being, minus 15 points, transformed the city, and brought Bournemouth to the Premier League and made them to a Premier League club. Nobody's done what Eddie Howe has done. Eddie Howe was paying players over Marks and Spencer paper bags at Bournemouth when he got there first. You know, Dan Ashworth found himself at Newcastle United sharing a room with powerful people, and he held no authority in that room, and that's why he's walked away. You know, so for now, what do they want? They want somebody that's going to support Eddie Howe on the ground. They absolutely offered a job to Dougie Friedman. Dougie Friedman was very close to taking the job. Dougie Friedman had reservations about how he had to kind of go back and forth between the Saudi side of things, and there was discussions that they would get somebody else involved to create that link. Dougie Friedman, and I can almost guarantee, will end up at Manchester United within the next 12 months. Right? He had I think his ear was bent a bit by people at Manchester United to not go to Newcastle. He will end up there within the next 12 months.
Sir Jim,
that's the information I have. Yeah. And we absolutely wanted him, and that's why we're in the situation. Jonas Spurs, you know, he's not that on the ground with Eddie Howe that they want a football man in that sense. But Jonas Spurs was given, if we have that multi-club model, I could see him being involved. I could see him maybe getting involved this summer, maybe more on a part-time basis rather than a kind of a full contract or something that is a little bit isolated from actually being involved in the football side, but helping with deals and stuff like that, like, you know.
I saw something actually about Spurs that said that he'd gone quiet. They'd not offered him anything. They had a few talks, but it's all gone quiet. And that Newcastle are currently looking at alternatives. So it kind of fits in with what you're saying. More so the multi-club model rather than being the
we suffered last year from analysis paralysis, you know, whereas we had Ashworth had one direction on things, you know. You don't bring in James Maddison when you have Elliot Anderson here. You give Elliot Anderson a year, you know, and you step away from the Maddison deal and see how he develops, you know, and that's how a club should run, how maybe you want the Maddison in. You know, there was a lot of stuff that went on there in the background. There's other players that they didn't agree on, you know, you're talking like players became available, like you have Tabido there at Nice, but, you know, he's nowhere near the level of, you know, passing ability and heading ability of Joachim Anderson, and there was disagreements there. You know, Steve Nixon is an incredible eyeball scout, but he struggled with backing up that data and presenting information to Eddie Howe. They have a great relationship, but Andy Howe has become the buffer in between Eddie Howe, Andy Howe, and Steve Nixon to create a statistical kind of bench point that they can all be on the same page, and that's going to work better. People will label Andy Howe as being getting the job because of Eddie Howe and all this kind of stuff. People I speak to say he's excellent at his job, you know, and we're lucky to have him. And don't be surprised in the next year or two if he's the one that ends up being the technical director.
Interesting.
Let's go for another one. FX Pro question: gone all quiet on outgoings after Minteh rejected Leon and wanted to stay in the Premier League. Everton only want to pay 25 million, and we want 40. Do you think he will stay or go now?
I don't think we actually want 40. They know it's unrealistic. You know, you look at Johan Bakayoko, his market value was he was being offered around for 35 million last year. He's been the best player in Holland there for the past 2 years, and they couldn't get 35 million from him. You know, so I'd say in around the 25-30 million mark is probably accurate. The problem is that we want to include a buyback clause. You know, and being honest with you, I think Newcastle should have sent Yankuba Minteh for a medical after saying he wanted to sign for Everton.
Right, let's go to another one. And it is from Chris. Chris.
He never comes on the show when I'm on. What is it?
Conspiracy there.
I heard it was him that was meant to invite me to the match as well.
Question for you boys. Do you think we need to sell before Sunday? If so, who's it going to be in your opinion? Minteh or someone else? So if it's not Minteh, who else? And he's saying not Isaac.
I genuinely don't know. See, the Saudi transfer window doesn't open for a couple of weeks either, and I think, the likes of Wilson and stuff like that, like there was interest from AC Milan, Atletico Madrid. There's a couple of clubs sniffing around him, and the same with Trippier. They'll want to stay in Europe, because at the end of the day, they could do a year in Europe, play a Champions League for, say, an Italian or Spanish club, and then move to Saudi and still get that big money for another year or two, so they're not at that age yet where they have to go to Saudi, So for me, unless something absolutely drops out of the sky, it's Minteh or nobody, I'd say, because I can't see anybody else moving.
Okay, I'm going to go one more question, and then we'll go head back to Pete. Well, I'll lead you back with another question, actually, Pete. But there's two questions or two comments in there on Botman. And FX is again, we'll go to your one. It said, I saw a report today that Botman will be back around September after seeing his training video. Is this correct, Sean? I'm seeing talk of 2025, close to 2025.
Well, I think October is the return to training. So, like, if you're returning to training in October, see, it's grand, when you're doing movements like Botman is doing, and you're seeing the video and stuff like that. There's no variability to that movement. Straight line movements, there's no twisting, turning, and see how it gets aggravated. When you come back and you start playing on the pitch, the knee naturally gets aggravated, and then you have to work with it from there. For me, I think with ACL injuries now, people can return after 6 months. Conor McGregor was back fighting after 3 months. He's Irish then as well. We're built different,
He doesn't turn up for the fight.
Yeah, he's a little pinky toe now. But with Botman originally he'd return to training in October, as in ball at the feet, and then they'd see him maybe January. The thing for me is that, and I suppose we can touch on when we're talking about injuries, is Eddie Howe took a lot of stick last season for injuries, right? I was sent a video by somebody, right, and it said, watch this player, right, how long before he gets a serious injury. It was a player in the gym doing an exercise with a personal trainer, and everything about the movement for a footballer was absolutely horrendous. The problem is that you have players overtraining during downtime, right? You have players they're doing their training sessions, and Gordon touched on this as well when he was talking about it. They're doing their training sessions, then they're spending hours in the gym, then they're going to personal trainers, getting other training sessions there, and they're on different plans, different movements, powerlifting, all this kind of stuff. If your form isn't right, I'll actually send you on the video, right, of the player doing the movements he was doing. I was watching it cringing because I actually had the exact same injury doing the same movement that he was doing, and he ended up with the injury as well. I don't want to say the person because I don't want to call out a personal trainer directly, because that's not fair. But a lot of these injuries that happened are because of players overtraining during downtime and going on different plans, belong to different people, and not doing what the club are saying. So there's a bit of a mixed bag there. Granted, they could have handled certain situations differently, but at the end of the day, he's not the fault for it either. Football has changed, and the demands on footballers have changed massively, and with the thing with ACL injuries as well, the bigger you are, the heavier you are, the longer the recovery is as well. So with Botman, I'd say you're talking the year, to have him back fully firing and fit.
I genuinely think we won't see him until 2025. And then even then, like you said, it's not just playing, it's playing with confidence, playing without the fear of a potential injury. And that can take 3 to 6 months to kick in. So for me, I don't think we'll see the best of Botman until the season after. If we get it before, great. But I don't think we're going to see the Sven Botman that we know and what we'd seen at Newcastle United, particularly in the season we finished 4th. I don't think we're going to see that next season. I think we're going to see someone that's building their way back into the team, which then begs the question: is that why we've been linked with so many left-sided centre backs? Are we looking for someone that can take the berth of maybe even Byrne, to take him out of the team, or is it someone that can play both left and right? I don't know.
That's what Taw can do. Like Malik Taw and Kilman, they can both play left and right. It's just that Taw is probably more predominantly right-footed, and he's the one that they look at.
Right, let's. I'm going to bring it back to you, people. I'll bring it back with this one. Toon from GK. While on holiday from Greece, beach is good, but Wi-Fi not so good. curious as to who Sean thinks will be our right winger next season. And don't say Miggy. But Pete, lead us off into that one.
Definitely. Look, we've been linked with a few right wingers over the last few weeks. The Pedro Neto one, it was talked about that we'd inquired about him. He can play there. It might not be his preferred position, but Morgan Gibbs-White was another. We've had a few linked recently, but like, what is the situation? And to add to that, not that one. That's Wilson, but Miguel Almiron. Like, is he going? Is he going to leave? There's lots of people saying he's going to refuse. He wants to stay. Is it just waiting for the Saudi window to open for him to leave, for then us to go and sign the main target? We've obviously lost out on Elise.
Look, I think the club have told Miggy that he's going this summer. I just think it was probably too last minute from young family, and just all the moving and stuff like that. And he's happy in the Northeast, but I think they made it fairly clear to him that the priority is for him to leave in the summer. They matched Bayern Munich pound for pound on the offer for Elise, but look, he chose Bayern Munich. Maybe it would be a different situation if you're in the Champions League, but we went all in on Elise, so that shows you where the ambition is. For me, I don't know why I just have a feeling about Bowen. I know it doesn't make a lot of sense in the sense of like he's playing with West Ham, his wife is from the location. Being honest with you, if it was me, I think that Danny Dyer is an absolute melt, so I'd be doing all I could to get out of West Ham anyway. Not to listen to him week in, week out. But for me, I think he knows he has that move in him, and if Paqueta gets the ban, I think West Ham wanted that money. They needed that money to invest this year. I think if Paqueta gets the ban, I think Newcastle will seriously test the water on Gerard Bowen. And I don't think he'd be wholly against it. I know his wife and all this kind of stuff, but like, he's not moving to Australia, he's only going up to the Northeast. Do you get me? He's a Midlands man, I think, as well himself. Like, so for me, just kind of whispers that I'm hearing and stuff like that Bowen is the top target and they will test the water there. Back from that, obviously Mbeumo, who we spoke about a long time on here, but I don't think Howe is totally against the idea of bringing in a right-footed right winger, on a lot of occasions. So when you watch football now, right, defenses are set up to face an inverted winger. They cut in, the defender stands on the 18-yard box, they can stand up the player when he cuts in, they block off the half space, and that's how defenses are set up. When we released Murphy a few times, once he beat his man and he hit the ball in behind the defender, they didn't know what to do. There was so many times that season he hit the front post and caused havoc. If you could upgrade on Murphy in that right wing situation, say with delivery and just natural skill, I don't think he'd be against it. I can see us going for Somerville. Just size, and he's better on the left. He's not really accustomed to the right. He can play through the middle, but if he's too lightweight, he's not over 6 foot. That's what Howe wants. Big, strong, bone breaking wingers like as such. I know Bowen is small, but Bowen's an absolute tank. You see that when he blew Dan Byrne off the ball there, at the London Stadium a few years back. So I think probably Bowen and Mbeumo are two that they're looking at. I know Sule, and players like that I mentioned, but I just don't know. For me, I can't see him going for Somerville, and I know he's strongly linked. I can't see him going for McAwady either. I feel like they're kind of red herrings, I've been honest with you.
Yeah, for me, I'm the same. Somerville, talented player. I just think with this right wing position has been a conversation for over a year now. As good of a period that Miggy had in the season we finished fourth, we knew there was an issue there. We knew there was an upgrade needed. Even more so this season, we knew that we needed to get a player in. So for me, going to get a Madueke, who's for me the final ball is still a massive question mark against his name. And then Somerville, who's not really proven at that top level. He has moments where he looks really, really good, and then moments where I'm not quite convinced. That's just my personal opinion. But I just think if we're going to go out there and get a right winger that's going to replace Miggy, it has to be a top level player. Like we talked about Neto, you just talked about Bowen there, which I'm all for. Like I see it. He might not have that sell on value that people talk about, but sometimes you don't buy players for sell on value. You buy them for the here and now.
We're not buying a player for sell. Sorry, Pete. We're not buying a player for sell on value. You know, like when you look at the market for left-footed right wingers, there's not a whole lot at the table. You know, and I know we've had plenty of conversations about Kudus, Diaby, and Barnes last season of why did they choose Barnes, but like. And I've criticised how, you know, in the sense of he should have went for a player X, player Y. But like, you look at Diaby, he was dropped out of the Aston Villa team a lot because his work rate is absolutely horrendous. You know, like he doesn't do a tap, you know, he does not look over his shoulder behind him. And then Kudus was, I think, the release clause or nothing. You know, so he was coming with a release clause or nothing. So we seen why they walked away from those deals and they brought in Harvey Barnes. You know, people were judging Harvey Barnes, who's been injured for half the season with a freak injury. I can guarantee you he'd be up nearly 16 to 20 goals and assists this season. You know, it's very hard to find a left-footed right winger at the moment that's going to come in and do a job in the Premier League, and I think the club are fairly stuck on that situation. Like, you know.
Yeah, definitely. It's going to be an interesting one because that's the one I think everyone's waiting for.
I don't think they know. Like, I genuinely like. I'm asking people, and I'm probably sick of asking people at the moment. I just don't think they genuinely know where they're going to land on the right wing position themselves.
Yeah,
you know.
Yeah, it's an interesting one, Daz. What your thoughts? What you think? What you're thinking? The right wing. Anyone that we've not mentioned? I know Kingsley Coman was just put in the chat.
There's a few people mentioned him, and look, we have this Neto. There's talking Neto as well. Like he's playing in the Euros as well. Morgan Gibbs White, I know he doesn't play so much on the right, but I don't know. I would have liked us to be doing sitting down and doing a deal with Forest actually, or with this, Everton, Chelsea, Villa, Leicester. Even they're all doing these deals. So between them, I would have liked us to go on in and done a deal with Forest. Sending someone the other way though as well.
Well, we'll see. We'll see. It's an interesting one. A new link to talk about because look, and it's sort of like the attacking sort of forward line. We've talked about the fact that Isak is staying. The reports with Chelsea, Scott Wilson, another great report saying that Newcastle were not concerned about Isak. Luke Edwards had then confirmed that he's not going anywhere and that he's staying. And Fabrizio Romano jumps on that as well, that the package would be too big.
I was kind of taken back by the report yesterday from Craig Hope. You know, I don't know, was it just the way it was written and stuff like that? But the way it was written was that we were almost in negotiations with them. You know, was it a kind of a link that you put to an editor and the way it came out just kind of didn't sound right, but it was a bit misleading. You know, but look, I think we all know Isaac is going nowhere. You know, he'll sign a new contract in July, you know, because that will dilute the amortization then for the next 2 years. And that's another thing that people need to grasp. Just to go back on a point, when you become a new club, like we have bought a lot of players in a very short space of time for big money, and their fees are on the books for the next 5 years. When that cycle starts to happen where, you know, you can add the contracts, bring down the fees on the books, and when that starts to cycle properly, you could be dropping maybe 15 million off the books every season, and that becomes another 2 players, you know, naturally, even without sponsorship. So that 5-year period of the first initial contracts, when we get into year 6 and these deals naturally start coming off the books, you can add people, you know, it might be 20 million drop off every season. Then you can add another 20 million pounds worth of players as in like amortization per season, you know. It's creating that cycle, and that's what happens when you're a new football club like we are. You know, it's the creating that cycle. Chelsea have that cycle going where players drop off every year. Arsenal do, Man City do, all these clubs do. That's why we have to wait that a little bit longer.
Couple of other players, like an interesting new link here with this man. Next is forward man. Georges Mikata. I can't even pronounce it. I'm not even going to say it because I'm
the Georgian lad. Friends of KK and Marinashvili.
A friend of KK. Let's do it. I'm not even going to pronounce it because I don't want to get it wrong. But pulling up trees in the Euros, playing very, very well. I actually think he might even be top scorer. I think he's got 3 goals.
He is, yeah.
He's top scorer. But there's a situation with him. He signed a new deal with Metz, and Mets got relegated. So there's talk that he will leave the club once the Euro is finished. And then, of course, this man, Dominic Calvert-Lewin, you've touched on him already.
I actually love Calvert-Lewin, man. You know, I think he signs.
To be fair, you've said it before that you really
like, honestly, you know, and speaking to people over the last couple of days, they feel like the situation between Everton with Calvert-Lewin and with Minteh, it's a bit of brinksmanship, that they wouldn't be surprised if it came back on, you know. Originally, the talks, I broke the news of actually the formal report on this, for a fella that makes it all up, fairly good. But like, with Calvert-Lewin, conversation myself, with Calvert-Lewin.
Do that a lot.
You know, like, I was originally
Do you text yourself as well?
I do. Hi, Sean, you're the best ITK on Twitter. Thank you very much.
ITK King.
I get my mom to text me. I've changed her name to Fabrizio on my phone. Like with Calvert-Lewin, originally they kind of brought us to the table on the deal, you know, and it was like, say, 20 million. We're bringing up to about 30 million in add-ons. Geez, I'm great crack, aren't I? So like,
she's coming on next week, by the
way. I tell you, you bring her on the show, man. She's a character. I tell you, character now. But with Calvert-Lewin, they kind of brought us to the table on the deal. It was 20 million with add-ons, bringing up to 30 or whatever like that. You know, it would have been, say, 20 million off the books of PSR for them. Then they started moving the goalposts. Then they wanted to inflate the prices of both Minteh and Calvert-Lewin to work against PSR, very much like what Chelsea are doing with Kellyman and all these situations, right? And then it just became a bit of an untenable situation where both sides were just moving in different directions. Newcastle didn't really want to inflate the prices because it's short-sighted by Everton just to get them over predicament, and the deals kind of broke down. The feeling from the Newcastle side is that Calvert-Lewin wants to move, they'll pay the money. If Everton want to come back at a reasonable fee, they'll talk. If not, they'll walk away. You know, but I'm not ruling out the DCL deal. It feels to me like there's a bit of brinksmanship going on there. That's just a bit of opinion and just my reading of the situation, but I wouldn't be surprised to see the deal spoken about again over the next coming days, you know, whether it's just smoke or not. But I know the club really want him. It is absolutely vital to have a target man when you're playing football in the Premier League. This, you know, like if you look at it statistically, or not statistically, sorry, if you look at it tactically, right, the best set up team in the second half of the season, even if you look at the season as a whole, was Crystal Palace, right? Right, so the new manager came in, Ali Glasner. He came in, he looked at it, right? Okay, I have centre backs that can pass the ball for fun, right? I have Mateta, who is an absolute bull up front, and then I have Olise and Easy, Adam Wharton in the centre. No discredit to Adam Wharton, but I would absolutely love to be him playing in that position because it's easy for him in the sense of he was very good, don't get me wrong, but like, if you're Adam Wharton and if you're receiving the ball, right, you have Walker Anderson and Gahey, right, facing you up, so you can go to either of them. If you turn the ball around the corner, you have Olise and you have Easy. And then if you want to make your full turn, you knock the ball into the channel to Mateta and he does the rest. Tactically, they were perfect. They stretched the pitch. If you look at it, every team that done damage against us, they stretched the pitch. And that's all they done. Bruno Guimarães is absolutely phenomenal in a compacted midfield. If that's compacted in there, the man would find space in a form box. You know, press resistant, incredible, like, you know. But like, if you stretch the pitch, Manchester United done to us at Old Trafford, they stretched the pitch. Basically, they put Fernandes back up in the centre forward position and he received the ball every time. And Guimarães kind of got lost in the centre, no discredit to him. Incredible player. But Nottingham Forest done the same to us. Crystal Palace done it to us. Their teams have stretched the pitch against us and they leave us lost in the middle. Not having Joelinton, we can't do that in return. So for us, to have a goalkeeper that can pass the ball, right, when your centre-backs are decent on the ball, you know, but not Joe Shares and Botman safe Shares out, and having an out ball in Calvert-Lewin. The thing about Alexander Isak is, right, if you give the ball to Isak with his back to goal in the middle third, he's excellent because he has time and space to move into. If you play the ball into Isak's back, if there's a defender behind him, he's useless. With his back to goal in the final third, he can't turn. Joelinton can't turn either. Wilson is the only one that can do it. Half turn is different. You need that Calvert-Lewin. You know, if we had Wilson fit for the Brighton and Man City games, we'd be in the Europa League, right? The Brighton and Manchester United games, because you need to be able to challenge a team's defence. They can sit and arrest defence very easy against us without that target man. Isaac wasn't a target man. You can't hit the ball to Gordon. You can't hit the ball to Miggy. You know, and Joe Linton's coming back to fitness. So having that option off the bench or even to start in the Calvert-Lewin, and I don't think there's a target man around that's better than him. You know, good in the channels, excellent in the air, hold up play. When we play against Everton, he's the one player I hope every time isn't playing.
Interesting. I would love to come to Daz with his opinion on Dominic Calvert. Really? Very quick.
Yeah, no, look, I still think we might end up going back for him. That's why I'm afraid to say much. But and I can see what people are saying about him. I just don't really want him at Newcastle. I just never took to him as such. Now, I didn't look in the detail into him as well, but it'd have to be at a very low fee, not this crazy fees that are being mentioned.
But my question to people is, if you're looking for a target man, we need a target man. Wilson is going. Who'd you bring in?
Well, we've talked about this before, and there's a player that we've mentioned, and Chris has mentioned it in a question here, around Tammy Abrahams. Like, it's clear that Roma want him to come back. Or want to sell him. He's almost kind of being talked about as wanting to come back to England. You know, for me, I think he would be a better alternative than Dominic Calvert-Lewin. I don't know what you think of that.
I think Abraham is more of a poacher. He's almost like, it's like he belongs in the wrong body or something. You know, like he plays actually like a 5'10" striker. You know, he's a good finisher. He's a poacher. He peels off a defender very well. You know, like if you watch a winger get to the line, he kind of stands back into the penalty spot. He attacks the front post. His characteristics for a player that's like 6'4", 6'5" are very strange. You know, I don't think he's that target man. Mateta, good shout. You know, but I think Calvert-Lewin is technically better than him. You know, but like I don't see Abraham as a target man. I think he's misprofiled because of his height. You know, so if you don't look at Abraham, who else is there? You know, you're not getting Sesko, obviously, because he signed a new contract. There's nobody really else available, and you need that option off the bench. 70 million. Is that the? You know, does he pass a medical? Does he pass a medical?
How can Brentford ask 70?
Well, he won't. Like he go for 45, 50 million. You know, but I think Tony's excellent, but I just don't see him coming to Newcastle. I don't see us giving the wages out of the club as often. He ends up at maybe a Chelsea or Man United or something like that, you know.
This is his next big move, isn't it? Like, or his biggest move of his career. He's going to want big money for whatever move he gets. He'll be shooting for the stars. That's the only thing. He'll be wanting to secure a Champions League team, or a team like, you know. There's rumours around Tottenham wanting him. And Europa League, Champions League, I think that's what he'll be aiming for. Ideally, Champions League, but there's only small limited clubs. There's Arsenal, there's Spurs in Europa League potential. There was a few rumours around, actually, from a Tottenham perspective, that they would want to potentially sell or move on Richarlison. I'm just bringing this out just because I saw it on the
Saudi.
We're talking about it, and potentially to Saudi, but would you bring him in as that alternative?
I would. He's not a target man, like, you know.
No,
and that's the thing.
He's not. But he can run the channels. He does do that well. I'm not saying that I'd want him. I'm just he's just another name that I'm just throwing out because you're right. There's not
for that right wing spot. And I get back to the Gariakis one actually as well. For that right wing spot, actually, I had Kuleveski as well. Know that you mentioned Tottenham. You know, he might be somebody that they left go. You know, lacks a little bit of pace, but his delivery is unbelievable. You know, I think he's a good player. And Gariakis, I've watched a lot of him this season because I've watched a bit of Sporting Lisbon, you know, because of Iniacho and stuff like that, and his links to Newcastle. He's a bit, I don't really rate him that highly. I think he struggles in the Premier League. I think, you know, and speaking to a few people that have watched him, you know, as in, like, that have kind of scouted him in lower leagues and stuff like that, a lot of Premier League clubs didn't look at him because he just, you know, he's lazy off the ball. He doesn't really work that hard. He comes alive in certain situations, and his finishing looks great in Portugal. But like, if you look at how the clubs are ranked, right, Bar Benfica and Porto. Benfica, Porto, Sporting Lisbon. Down from them. Those clubs are not even ranked higher than any of the championship clubs. You know, like bar those 3 teams, he's playing against League One opposition. You know, so for 70, 80 million, I wouldn't be taking the risk, being honest with you.
How about sticking with Sporting Lisbon for a second? How about Osman Diomande, the centre back? I think it'd be too expensive for us.
I don't know. I was just I asked the question, and I'm not saying that my people are right or whatever that, but I was told he wasn't a target. You know, that they've watched him, and there's certain things.
Get you people, Sean.
What? Like, you know, for me, it was just that he has a lot of kind of stuff like that, like much like when they looked at Badia Shield and stuff like that. Like that, there's a lot of stuff that he needs to work on before he becomes a 50 million player that you take out of Portugal. You know, he has all the attributes, but he just needs to bring them together. We've seen that with so many players before. You know, like having the attributes is one thing, but bringing them together is another. Yeah. You know.
Interesting. I don't know how long you've got with us, Sean. How long?
I'll give you another bit of time. You're great crack.
Okay, love it. Because
I'll throw another question at you. So since we're on the strikers and bring it closer to home, Evan Ferguson, what's happened?
I love him. It's just injuries and De Zerbi. One thing I can say for a fact is De Zerbi will never work in the Premier League again.
You reckon?
I've heard stuff about him, man, you wouldn't believe.
You know what? Couple of people, Brighton, you know, Maz, Daz, we've had him on the channel.
You're calling him Maz already, thinking about the DCL skirt, aren't you? Hi, Maz.
It's a guy that works with.
I believe. Yeah. Have you been sending Pete the pictures thinking, will I go as Maz when I wear the skirt? Sorry, my apologies.
No, he's talked about De Zerbi, and he's heard things from a Brighton perspective saying he's not a nice guy behind the scenes.
A-hole.
Yeah. He's not nice at all. And a lot of players, a lot of people within Brighton were quite happy to see him go.
I know of 2 Irish players that had a very tough time. You know, not a good guy, you know, but again, it's kind of, look, I can't see Ferguson's value is still where it is, you know. I wouldn't be surprised if Arsenal looked at Ferguson, being honest with you.
Interesting. I'm going to steal your questions for a second, Daz, because we've got to ask Sean whilst he's on. Joe Linton or Gallagher? Don't do a Bailey on us, please.
I've Joe Linton every day of the week, you know, but I think Gallagher would be excellent in an Eddie Howe system, you know. I like Gallagher, you know. Certain situations, you know, again, if you're a high pressing team, he's the man you want, you know.
He's not great with his feet, though.
He's not.
He's not playing a goal.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I'd pick James Trafford. You know, I suppose we can touch a little bit on Bruno Guimarães as well, you know, because I get a bit of stick for saying that Bruno's going to leave. I was absolutely convinced that somebody would trigger the clause. 100 million, man, is nothing for him. Like, you know, like he's a unicorn of a footballer. I don't know another centre midfielder that can do what he does. You know, I genuinely thought that Man City, Arsenal, PSG, Barcelona were going to snap our hands off from, you know, like, I was devastated, you know, and I think I was doing it more as a coping mechanism than anything that he's going to go, and I was convincing myself. But, like, I still have that worry in the background that he has an excellent to Copa America and somebody like Real Madrid come in and they offer maybe 80 million and he's like, you know, what happens next? But, you know, as I would have said on the Irish Mags, big shout out to the Irish Mags. I'll be on soon. Like and subscribe also. Friend of the channel. We have I was told that if he does stay and if somebody doesn't trigger his clause that January coming this year, that there's an availability to extend his contract again with a pay increase and stuff. So it could be very well. I don't know, does he stay this summer and in January, then they'll increase probably depending on position and stuff like that. But there's an opportunity to increase the contract that he has already. There's a clause or somewhere inside there involved.
So to increase in his wages and increase the length.
Yeah, and increase the length of the deal as well. You know,
I'm for it.
I am too. Yeah,
we'll take that all day. To be fair, a few of the Man City fans that that I speak to, they feel that they've got they reckon they've got links to the club. They've been telling me for the last 2.5 weeks, like every week it was like, with that Man City are going to activate the clause this week, and then nothing's happened.
Everybody was getting whispers of that, though.
We've been told they're activating this week, and then it never happened. It was just like, it was going on and on and on. So I was a bit like you. I was already resigned in my mind to the fact that Bruno Guimarães was leaving, because with the noises that I was hearing, not even from a Newcastle point of view, just from a Man City perspective, from their fans and for people that they know and trust close to the club, that was going to happen. And then it didn't. And then the longer it got to it, it was like the question mark of, is it the 24th? Is it the 30th? Some people were saying they were adamant it was the 30th. When it got closer to the 24th, it was like, he's not going anywhere. It would have been done way before. It was never going to be a last-minute thing with Bruno Guimarães leaving. I think he was always going to give us the respect of letting us know in advance of any lease clause that he was going to leave.
Do you know what? Like, I have a solid Arsenal contact as well. Like, you know, you're talking over 100,000 followers. No, he hates me because I'm I do it like with the Arsenal stuff. I'll make up like once a season, once a summer. I'll definitely make up like a random Arsenal rumor, like, you know, and it sends into overdrive. And he'll be like, "Gee, but Ivan Toney signing for Arsenal," and next I'll just send back laughing faces, and he's like, "You mother Hubbard." Every year I've caught him so far with Moises Caicedo, Mudryk. I caught him with Ivan Toney. I caught him with the Bruno Guimarães one as well previous, like, because like the chat rooms or whatever like that, like, you know, they kind of flood with, like, and then he's hitting out to me next, he's like, "Fuck's sake." All a bit of fun, you know. Again, I suppose if I probably took more care of my account, people would trust me a bit more, but look, I like to have a bit of fun with it as well. You know what, you know what, if I had one follower, or what do I have now, 17,000 followers, I'm not on social media for followers. I get information, I put it out, I like coming on the show with you and having a chat, and that's it. I don't care about my account in that sense. I delete it in the morning and start another one. It doesn't bother me in the slightest, you know. I'm not in it for the followers, like, because I gain nothing from it. I don't have a blue tick or any of that and that stuff. But like with the Arsenal contact, he was adamant that they held talks and Bruno Guimarães never bit on it. You know, that Edu and his agent had an excellent kind of, they had a very good relationship, you know, and I would have alluded to that. And he was like, the indication from Arsenal is that if they hit the clause, would he talk? And the fair on the Arsenal side of thing is that they were going to do the release clause, and Guimarães would refuse to talk to him, because in his mind that there was two moves he wanted. One was Real Madrid, and the other one was he'd be tempted to play for Pep at Man City, which is understandable, you know.
Definitely. Yeah, you understand it because of the level and the stature of the club. That's why I kept saying to Arsenal fans that were adamant he was going to Arsenal. I said, you know, there's a chance that Arsenal could be successful and win trophies in the next 2 or 3 years. But with Man City, with Real Madrid, like you said, there's almost like a guarantee that you are going to win something. And he'd be almost walking into a sure thing.
Some quick fire questions?
Yeah, man.
Quick fire.
No more tangents.
Still interested? Are we still interested?
No, I think that the horse is bolted. I think
it's gone. FX Pro says, any exclusive on academy targets, Sean?
So there's a young fullback at Sunderland, Dan Parker. Tough season with injuries, but they've looked at him again. You know, I think the likes of Leicester and Man City, and you know, a lot of clubs have looked at him. Excellent potential. You know, definitely one for the future, and the club have been looking at him. Chris Rigg, I believe he has an offer on the table for Manchester United, and that offer they have asked Sunderland, Newcastle, and one or two other clubs to see if they can match it, and if they don't, he will go to Manchester United. Preference would be to stay at Sunderland or even a move to Newcastle, but there's a chunky offer on the table for Chris Rigg from Manchester United.
Wow.
Okay. Peter Smart asked the question: training as shirt sponsors.
I don't know
how much.
I do not know, but I could make up something that sounds really fancy if you want.
No, it's okay.
No? I heard it's the Radiator Shed. No, but I was told that I was told that it will be after the 1st of July because there were certain stipulations in the contract with Fun 88 that we stepped away from the shirt sponsorship, but we couldn't do the training ground for certain reasons. I don't know the ins and outs, so I'm not going to get into the detail, but something along the lines of Fun 88 still had a holding on the training gear for another year, but they didn't actually apply the sponsorship to the kits for reasons I don't know, but there's something caught up with Fun 88 that elapses and it comes available and that we can add sponsorship after the 1st of July.
Okay. Sounded convincing, didn't
Good, wasn't it? I can give you my address, Russ, if you want to send over some radios.
Some baby ones.
Andy Ford asked a question about Kubio. Have you heard anything about him?
Yeah, I think. Do you know what? No, we had links to him back about a year ago, you know, but I haven't had anything recently, you know. That's not to say like they've watched Sociedad a lot, you know, and I was told recently it was because of Lelormand, but he ended up going to Atletico Madrid. But Kubo is definitely one to keep an eye on, but I don't think he's top of the list, you know. Breaking news: Kubo signs for Newcastle.
Yeah, could let's keep an eye on Fab or your mom. Right. PDK asks, if Trips is sold, who would be the pitch captain? Bruno?
I'd say it'd be Bruno, but I'd love it to be Joelinton. Joelinton, man, he is just everything that encapsulates Newcastle United as a football club, like, isn't he? Absolutely down in the dumps, ruled out, deleting the social media because of the abuse he's getting. And now the man is an absolute shithouse, a king amongst kings. We absolutely idolize him, you know. If you want to, like, if you're ever to show your kids, don't give up, Joelinton is that message. You know, that is what you call, you know, ironclad mental health, you know, knowing what you're doing and know where you're going. Like, that man is everything you want in a role model. Fucking love him. My son's favourite player is Dan Burn, though. So I wish Dan Burn gets that.
Who's your favourite player?
Who's my favourite Newcastle player? Gordon. Love him. Absolutely love him.
Yeah, it's quality.
I broke the news on Gordon as well. Made it up.
William Smith asks, how legit were the rumours that Anderson was being offered
Nonsense.
to Wolves? So it's part of the Kilburn. Oh.
I think the idea did come about that Anderson would be available, but I have a very, 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 very good source that, well, he was never told about it anyway. Put it that way.
No, he was never going to go anywhere unless he was going to just confer with his brother. But his brother's too busy. It's somewhere in Spain on Love Island. So
I don't watch Love Island. I've seen the kind of, I've got little bits of it, alright, like, you know, but I don't watch it. Too busy.
Sorry, guys. Just to add on to that, just really quickly, with Elliot Anderson, there's a lot of talk, and everyone saying, "Well, why are we selling him? This, that, and the other." Like, with everyone fit and firing, he's going to be under the cosh next season because he plays on that left side of a midfield three. You've got Joelinton that's always going to start there. You've got Willock that obviously had injury plagued season this season, a little bit like Anderson, but had a brilliant season the season before that. So you would almost think that he would be sort of second choice. So he's almost playing third fiddle in that midfield three. Like, do you think Newcastle will be willing to kind of sell him because
I do think they are.
He's almost kind of like that player that could leave and it doesn't massively damage the midfield if everybody stays fit.
Yeah, you know, there is an opportunity for him to leave. I think I wouldn't rule it out, being honest.
Longstaff first, though.
Yeah. I love defending him because it annoys people so much.
Right, there's one here from John, and says, great show, but over on Ed Harrison's blog, Ed Harrison passed away recently, great blog, if anyone has ever read it through the years, but I used to follow it myself years ago, but he says there's a guy on there called Munster Mag, and I know who he's talking about, but he says he's a serious man crush on Sean. Just think, is by any chance, is that you, Sean?
No. I think it's a fella called Nags from the Irish Mags.
I know him.
You might know him. Yeah, man, Ed Harrison. Do you know what? No, I was actually devastated about it because when I go on holiday, so what I do is I delete all social media and I actually read Ed's blog. I moved to Germany before I moved to Australia, and when I was in Germany, kind of no social media wasn't there. And I used to go, like, on the way to work, I'd stop at the internet cafe and I'd read the blog in the morning and I'd read it on the way home. And the same when I moved to Australia and Greece and places like that. I've lived a couple of times abroad, and I used to love reading Ed's blog. And when I logged it, I was like, it was my thing that, like, when we went to France, I was there, went up, got my coffee, sat out at the beach, and I went to actually log in, and I seen he had passed away. Devastated, man. Like, he was, like, honest to God, like, he was the start of everything. Like, you know,
He was, yeah.
you'd read the story, you know, like, he'd have the story micronized for you, like, you know, like, and just the kind of key bits of it, and then the chat underneath it, you just go mental, like, you know, brilliant, man. You know, Jesus, rest in peace, Ed. Like, you know, absolute, fucking brilliant, absolutely brilliant. You know, I hope when the season does start up, and I hope the club are in touch with doing something for him, because I think absolutely every Newcastle fan knows him, has used the blog or something like that. Maybe War Flags or something have something planned for him. Like, but like, yeah, man, what a legend.
Yeah, agree. So shout out to Munster Mag as well.
He's good taste.
Let's go with this one from Luke on Henrik. Where will the Dublin Diego be playing his football next season? Who cares? Sorry, Luke. Piera from Fulham. Any truth in that one?
Nothing.
It was a strange one that came out of nowhere, really. I mean,
do you know what? You could become extremely reliable if you just denied every story that came out of Spain and Portugal. Newcastle linked a player, just deny anything that the Spanish or Portuguese journalists say about Newcastle, and you would be 100% correct every time.
Luke asks another one here. He asks, lads, does Alex Murphy get a shot next season? And also, when do you predict he becomes Robocop?
Do you know what, man? He has some potential. Like, Daz, you probably would have seen him play as well. Like, you know, big unit of a lad, moves quick. You know, he'll get a loan this season. I can imagine going to the Championship, I'd say, or even a loan move to Holland. You know, they loaned Minteh to Holland because they believed that Holland was actually a step down from the Championship. You know, that the intensity and the pace and just the game itself was better in the Championship than it was in Holland. So, yeah, he definitely gets a loan move.
Nice. Yeah, I want to see him playing football next season. Captain Kev Hart keeps it simple. He goes, Sean, who do you think we'll get?
I would say, just opinion, I would go for Trafford, Taw, Calvert-Lewin. Just, I don't know, I just get that feeling around it. Do you know what? I've had somebody for the last 3 weeks who I really trust and won't give me a name. And that's why I trust them, because they share only bits of information. And like, when stuff comes out, and if I like, what about this part, and all they keep on sending me back is, we have extensively scouted the Bundesliga. And that's all they keep on saying. You know, with kind of smiling faces, like, there's somebody in the Bundesliga that we are extensively scouting. I know I would have broke the news about Rocco Reitz kind of being more of a Bruno Guimarães replacement. I think if he stays this year, there's a release clause next year on his contract. I know he's very high on the agenda. He's kind of in the tall bracket of a player that they think will be exceptional. I don't know. I don't think it's him for this summer, but I just keep on getting the same message of, we have extensively scouted the German league. It's getting a bit annoying at the moment, but yeah, whoever that is, I don't know. But look, I know it's very, very broad to say something like that, like, but I would say Taw, Trafford, and maybe Calvert-Lewin are the three that I could see happening. Everything else after that would probably be a bit of a surprise, you know. And Buemo as well, you know, I wouldn't rule it
out. Just to come back to it, because I think one or two have just mentioned it in the chat. This man, Miodrag Pivas, Serbian young teenager, apparently has been seen in Newcastle and are set to complete the signing of centre-back, midfielder. It looks like he can play both from the little snippets that I think everybody's seen. But it looks like that deal's going to be done.
Credit where it's due. Ben, 2 more at a time. He done some work on that yesterday. Like, he was like, pictures in the shop, had the wrong person, got a shitload of abuse, and he was like, no, there's definitely a player there, 100%, I believe it, you know. And to be fair, he got it over the line in the end. Like, you know, he had it before everybody else. The abuse he was getting over was funny because he had it, like, you know. But
He thought he was one of the Serbian strikers, I think, that was at the Euro.
But you know what though, like Marcel Bout, like, you know, that's another thing as well. It's like his job is tasked just to find a young versatile forward. Sammy Castleshaw, whatever his name is at Besiktas, is somebody that he's watched extensively. You know, I wouldn't be surprised if he ends up with a versatile striker. He's the one I want. Fucking love him. You know, but yeah.
We know about him. We talked about him.
Yeah. Kilroy.
Yeah,
Kilroy.
I broke the news. Look at me. I broke the news on him. Not that I look for attention or anything. Yeah, I think Boat will pop up. His job is to be tasked with find a versatile striker on the continent. But yeah, we see where that lands. But yeah, you know, like you look at Ben as well. Like, you know, he gets a bit of abuse and stuff like that. But like, could you imagine social media without ITK accounts?
That'd be pretty boring. Yeah. By
hook or by crook, like, you know, they always have the information first, like, you know, like you have said, like, that NUFC concept kits there, like, you know, he's doing up like training kits and jerseys and stuff like that. He does excellent mock-ups and stuff like that, and he's really close with a couple of the kits, like, you know. I released all the kits first too. Not that
I love the way you put your name on
it. But he does great mock-ups of kits and stuff like that, and people are abusing him over that. I enjoy it. You know, the flight trackers and stuff like that, man. Embrace it. They're doing what they do. Like, you know, like, imagine Twitter without the flight trackers, without the concept kits, fellas, without the ITKs. You know?
I blame these boys. I've never been into the flight trackers.
It's a bit of fun.
That's a Chris.
Man, I'm telling you now, right?
January.
Well, like, you look at it, like, there's Ben got the flight log of Stavely coming over. Yeah. I can't say it because of confidential things, but like, I actually got the flight log of a player going to Newcastle as well, and that's why I was able to say that, oh yeah, this player is definitely coming in. You know, now what they do is you can pay X amount to turn off the tracker, so like you're able to get the names of the people. Man, the information that people offer you up, you wouldn't believe. Some of the information I've got of people on flights, logs, you know, like situations. Registering Paqueta's kids in schools. My
wife quotes that one at me.
Well, like, some of the stuff that you get sent and pictures and stuff like that, man, it's mental. You have no idea. It's fun, like, you know. Like, I should do a book or something like that, like the Diary of an ITK or something like that. Like, you know, just put it all out there. Great crack.
There you go. You heard it from first. A book from Sean Casey. Right, one more last question. Oh, sorry, Pete, you want to get into something?
I was going to say that. Sorry, just Chiesa. We're not talking about him. Is he a pipe dream? Captain Keith Hart has put that out there. I think it's
they've been offered. Do you know what? They've been offered a chance to sign him a few times, and they haven't bid on it. You know, maybe it ends up in a situation where we do bring him in, but they have passed on it too many times now for me to think that's a real option, you know.
Would it be too difficult now because we've not got Europe? Do you think he'd be looking elsewhere?
I don't know, man. When you look at the players that we have, like, Jimmy, like, for me, right, okay, you know, like, people are like losing their heads over like Kilman and Trafford and all these players. The reassurance I have is Bruno Guimarães has committed himself to the club. Joe Linton has committed himself to the club. Isaac is committing himself to the club. You're telling me that Chiesa is looking at this and thinking, I'm not going to Newcastle. Players want to play with these players. Do you know what I mean? And they know, like, from the outside looking in, you're looking at the bulk of that squad. We're pushing for top 4 next season. You know, and if we get the right players in, we'll push the top of the table very, very hard next season without the extra games. In the end, I was happy we didn't get Europe. I wasn't crying.
We believe it.
No, what the worst thing is, my son is watching. My son is getting into watching football and stuff like that. Like, so if the games run late, I have to watch the games twice because I watch it myself. Fucking hell! And then you're getting up the next day and you know the result, like, and he's buzzing for it, and I'm like, oh, we're getting battered by fucking Forest there, like, or something, you know. Or else if you know, it's just, but look, it is what it is. It's all part of the process.
Right, this is a good question here from Mr. Chowdhury. He goes, Sean, what's your view on how his apparent insistence on buying mostly English players or good English-speaking players? It seems like he will choose Premier League experienced players over good foreign talent.
Vital. You know, like, again, put yourself in Eddie Howe's shoes. You know, it's grand for us to sit on the sidelines and look, I am a happy clapper and all this kind of stuff because I am just happy to be supporting a club that's moving in the right direction. And I do not believe there is a manager out there capable of doing what Eddie Howe done. There is not, man. Can you name me a manager that's done what Eddie Howe has done at Brighton, Bournemouth, what he done at Newcastle, bringing us from relegation to the Champions League? You know, if Eddie Howe wants English players, like, at the end of the day, it's about stability, right? We've lost the dressing room. He had to rebuild the dressing room. Now you have Lascelles, who's not going to be around the dressing room. You have Sven Botman, who's not going to be around the dressing room, right? You have Wilson, Trippier, who are gone. You have Matt Ritchie and Paul Dummett. You do not want to throw too many variables into that dressing room of characters that you don't understand. James Trafford is a leader. Like, people I've spoken to that I've known from Bolton and stuff like that, he's young, but he's a leader. Excellent mindset. Excellent trainer, coachable, an absolute leader. Malik Taw is a leader, but I can understand if he wanted to go for a Max Kilman, you know, and just bridge that gap for a year or two, just until we have that dressing room built again. He's not just building a team; he's building a new dressing room as well. Building a dressing. We spoke about this before in detail, lads, about the most important. Like, we spoke on a couple of podcasts about the second rebuild being the most important, because he's not just rebuilding the playing staff, he's rebuilding the dressing room. And getting the right players in this time is vital to how the club goes forward.
Yeah. They can't afford to miss.
No, they can't.
To be fair, we haven't, since the takeover, we haven't been able to afford to miss.
And we haven't.
At this moment in time, we haven't. Like, people have questioned Lewis Hall. The lad came in at 18, like he's still building, developing. You will see the best of him. But you look around the signings that we've got, like, we thought early on that Gordon might not be that guy, and he's proved to be more than what I think any Newcastle fan expected. So, but you're right. This summer's crucial.
Do you know what? I was asked an interesting question recently, because I don't know. I felt like the Tonali fee at 45 million was too low, based on what I heard the previous October on news I broke. So, like, I was just thinking 45 million is too low. What's the catch? What's the catch? And I had somebody recently, and they just put the message to me: would you have taken Tonali for 45 million knowing he was getting a year's ban? Would you think the investment was worth it?
For what we needed going into the Champions League, we could have done. We could have done with the player being there and ready. But if you're asking me right now, knowing that he's just about to come out of his ban, probably.
You know, he's a 60 million player.
Yeah, and he will prove to be that. This is the thing. We've lost him for a year, for 10 months, whatever it is. We've lost him for that period of time. But at 23, 24 years old, what I believe he's going to give us, it'll be on. I think it'll be close to Bruno levels. That's just my opinion.
Two more questions that I think are topical. Anthony, on stadium development, Sean, Anthony, on your radar there?
Do you know what? It's a bit of a mixed bag. I'm not going to. There's too much. Like, so my original said my source at PAF that would have given me the information first day to say that they were buying the club, and then when, you know, there was going to be the Spurs games, that they were there and stuff like that, solid out, because he's not really involved in football, you know, as such. Like, you know, it's a strange loose link, like, you know, like, he was adamant that part of PIS plan was to build a new stadium. What the site is and where it is, I don't know, you know, but I do know that the FA are panicking about Newcastle changing stadium before the Euros in is it 2028, and there's a lot of panic on there because the STAC contract only goes up in 2028 as well. So they're panicked that Newcastle could be in a redevelopment or moving stadium around that stage when St James's Park is a key stadium. He's adamant that PIS plan for Newcastle is to move stadium and build a new stadium, whether they do a refurbishment in the meantime. At the end of the day, people say, why would you put 300 million into a stadium when you're going to move. 300 million from PIF is pittance. That's like us dropping a cent. It doesn't come off FFP. It gives you upside on, gate receipts and all this kind of stuff. So if the opportunity is to pump money into St. James's Park and to build a new stadium, they will. I know though the Northumberland FA ground, they've taken that over. So the training ground is getting bigger now. So they've moved into the Northumberland FA grounds as well. So that's going to become the media hub, and there's a new training facility and stuff like that. And they will go to a subscription TV thing inside there. So you'll see a lot of these games that they're doing with the players of a lot of the YouTube stuff. So that will go behind the paywall, probably mid next season, sorry. And then you have Kingsington Park, is it? Where the Falcons are. So they have made an offer for those grounds. They want to take that stadium, do a redevelopment there, and have the women's stadium there.
Oh, interesting. Keep an eye out for that one.
When are you releasing the away kit, Sean? People want to know.
I put out a screenshot of it, didn't I?
Did you?
I did.
Is your name on that one?
I posted it. Well, I didn't go for. I didn't go down further down the kit. So I was talking to NUFC contact Kip. So the green and white one, it's in the screenshot that I sent. I'll send the picture and I'll put it out there when I get a chance. And the third kit, so the green and white one, or the third kit, green and white, has a nice little collar with a button on it. It's my favorite one. It's the equipment range. And in the second kit, the what would you call it, the wine and blue or whatever. Yeah. There's 7 stripes going across the front of it. There's a thick white collar at the top of it. The collar is a bit strange, but it's a lovely kit. But I think they struggled with the design of the Pro kit, because originally that they wanted to have buttons on the second kit, and there was an idea to have buttons on the first kit as well, to replicate the old, I suppose, the old legendary button-down ones, but they actually couldn't apply it to the material that was used in the Adidas kits. So yeah, there you go. So not too dissimilar to what you're seeing in the media. It's just that the second kit, the collar is a thick white collar, 7 stripes up and down. I think a lot of them have only 6 only, and the away kit in is the green and white one that I posted.
Cool.
Look forward to that.
And pretty much all the questions.
Yeah, there's like I say, just one or two other smaller bits. Lots of love coming in for Ed Harrison. I think there was one or two other smaller bits with regards to where was it? Trippier leaving. Do you think he's gone?
Yeah, I think he goes.
Yeah. And I think that's about it in terms of questions. One more, sorry, from FX Pro, Ronnie Edwards.
Yeah, I like him. Yeah. I know Ashford pushed him strongly when he came. Okay. So yeah, he's somebody at the club I've looked at.
Yeah, I think that's about it. But you know what? Great chat as always. Absolutely loved it.
Cheers, Sean.
I'm the best guest you ever have.
we always have a great chat, and this is why we do what we do, because we get.
You know what, lads?
Love it.
It's funny, when I get something wrong, there's always that drive of people. Loaded Maggie can't have him on ever again, and this is why the channel isn't going to succeed. My first show on, I think he had 900 guests. You have 19,000 now. Do you get me? People love you and they love Loaded Mag and the lads and the lads that were there previously, because you don't judge. You don't get involved in the nonsense. You don't tear other people down. You accept everything as you are. You come on for a chat, and I feel like when I come on the show, I'm sitting with 2 fellas down the pub just having a chat, and there's not thousands of people watching. You're really nice people, and you deserve all the success that you get. I remember back in the day, there would have been, when I was getting all the shit and stuff like that, and you were just like, come on the show, man. We don't care what people think. If one person watches or 1,000 people watch, we just want to hear what you're talking about. It's all a bit of fun, and it's taken in that same sense. We get things right, we get things wrong. But look, keep on doing what you're doing. You deserve all the success that you get.
Cheers, Sean. Much appreciated. Things change in football, and then as you said yourself, things might look like a done deal, but things behind the scenes can change things. So
lads, I have screenshots of Joe Pedro celebrating his move to Newcastle. The man himself, his Instagram account, celebrating his move to Newcastle, and that deal fell through. Do you know what I mean?
Hey, we have a video announcing him as well, but because we were sure it was done.
Somewhere in the archives.
On YouTube.
Just to pique your interest, Fabrizio Romano's just released, not Newcastle related, but it's interested of what might come in the next 3 days. An exclusive: Brighton and Leicester agree a swap deal. Dewsbury Hall is going to Brighton, and Yankuba Minteh is going to Leicester. Apparently, the medical's already booked. Minteh is already agreed to go to Leicester. Chelsea have inquired about Dewsbury Hall, but they've not bid yet. Crazy.
Should be an interesting weekend.
Yeah.
Lads, a pleasure as always. I'm going back into my mother's basement, and I'll see you again. But hopefully, I'm praying to God that it's a Malik Tor signing video, or maybe even we might get an old teaser from Daz for the whole TCL video.
No, fucking you do that.
Maz, is it, Maz? Lads, a pleasure as always. Absolutely love the show.
Legend, mate.
Thanks, Sean. Mind yourself. Take care. Oh, Pete. 2 hours, 5 minutes. What a show.
Wasn't even expecting to do that, but it's always a great chat. Like, people have their opinions on Sean, like Sean's just said, but we get Sean on round a table, just like we do, the three of us, and we have a conversation about football. That's what it's all about. Sean gives in his opinions, gives his perspectives. We do ours. We'll talk about the transfers that are happening. Some of the things that we've all talked about may not happen. They may well. We'll see. But this is what the Full Load of Transfer is all about. We get different people from different areas of football, whether it's journalists, whether it's fans, whether it's other people attached to other channels, and we have a chat about it. That's what we love.
Shout out to manscaped.com, and if you use the code loaded20, here we have it scrolling across the screen at the bottom, you can get 20% off and free shipping. So that's loaded20 at the checkout. Also, as we mentioned earlier, we played the jingle for Radiator Shed. Use the code loaded20 or call Russ. Why not give him a call or email him? They're already scrolling at the bottom of the screen, as we've mentioned before as well. He will sort you out for 20% off radiators. I imagine we're going to be back in the next 3 days. We're expecting to be back, but we just need to see how it all plays out. We'll definitely be back after that. Oh, hang on. Have you news for me?
No news. But just to add to that, obviously, if something breaks, we might decide to go, right, let's go and have a conversation and let's talk about it. If you haven't already, click the notification bell on your way out, just because that will give you that alert that we are coming with a show. Let us know that you're part of it. Come and join us in the chat. The chat has been outstanding tonight. Fantastic. We had 600, including the Twitter. We shut the Twitter. We brought everyone over to YouTube. You guys are always amazing. Thank you for those that are always here, supporting, putting your questions in. And thank you to everyone else that's joined us. Brilliant chat. Hey, we ain't going anywhere. Lots more to come.
Lots more to come. You know what? I'm just going to, because I said I'd bring this up, but I forgot to talk about it. Our sweepstake. Yes, it's down. We're down to the last 16 now, and it's hard to read it on the small screen, especially. But we've got 9 against Minnesota Mag. We've got Antoon Army versus Paulie G. We've got Tampa Toon versus Trules. We've got Dave Woolman versus Gary Finnegan. Drew Knox versus Stu Amos. The Clonard versus Gabbarax. We've got Shane Mawson and his beloved England against Mandy Pyle. We've got Dave Cook versus Tom Dixon. So, yes, it's getting serious now as we get down to the last 16. So, with the games coming up at the weekend. But that's it. We'll leave it there, Pete.
Yeah.
See you soon. Thanks for watching. Hit that like on the way out. How'd you like that? Good night, everyone.